we have some human beings that maybe aren't as good on video as some of the robots that we've seen. We had this scenario where OpenAI's CTO, Mira Murati, is coming under some fire for a recent interview with the Wall Street Journal. She sat down with a journal reporter to talk about Sora, which is the company's new AI video generation model. The interview actually contained plenty of really useful discussion about Sora, its capabilities, but it's getting all the attention because of one controversial segment. So the journal reporter asked Murati what data the model used for training in order to be able to generate all the realistic videos that we've seen in Sora demo. Murati responded saying, quote, "We used publicly available data and licensed data." But then when the journal pressed her about where this data was coming from, the journal reporter asked, "So does that mean videos on YouTube?" Murati responded with, "I'm actually not sure about that." She also said she wasn't sure if videos from Instagram and Facebook were used to train the model. Instead, she kind of kept repeating that the data used was publicly available or licensed. And then at one point during the interview, just shut down further questions about the different websites and sources being used. So, Paul, we both watched this interview. I mean, how bad is this? We both come from the PR world. Uh, this seems like it should have been a pretty preventable PR issue.
Yeah, I mean, from a PR communications perspective, it's just a total miss on OpenAI's part. It'll go away. It's fine. Like, I mean, this stuff happens all the time. It's shocking how often tech companies allow this stuff to happen because
Yeah.
they don't put enough value, I think. And we saw this in our own careers, Mike. Like, the PR and communications function isn't understood or often appreciated, I think. And especially in like a fast moving tech company. And yeah, like how you sit down for an interview with the Wall Street Journal without an FAQ this would be question number one I would have put. Like, again, we've done training on this stuff. We used to run workshops teaching people how to prep for media interviews. And this would have been like 1A of the questions I would have prepared this person for. So this was obviously, they just didn't like take it seriously or really think about what might be asked within this environment. So yeah, certainly from that perspective, it was just a miss, and hopefully they fix that moving forward. But at a more important level, the fact that they can't answer that question, like even if they had prepared, what would they have prepared her to say?
Mm.
Um, because here's the thing that is really kind of challenging to understand with all of these companies that are building these models. If it's fair use to take copyrighted material to train these models as they say it is, as they're basically claiming in the lawsuits that are against them right now. If they believe that, then why don't they just say where the data came from? Like, if you think you're allowed to take videos from YouTube to train these models, then why don't you just say we used YouTube videos? So obviously, they're not confident in their own stance. There's no way the CTO of the company doesn't know whether or not they used YouTube videos. So that to me is the bigger issue here. It's that if these companies truly believe they're legally allowed to be taking this data to train their models, then just say that's what you're doing. But they're not saying it. And so it's a much larger issue than a PR issue. That being said, I will suggest like the video is worth watching from the other perspective. So it's only about a 10-minute video, but there was a few things that I made note of. One was um, kind of like we were seeing with the agent conversation we just had. The demos of Sora are mind blowing. Like if you go watch all these videos and they keep releasing them on Instagram, they're incredible. But the Wall Street Journal had them create 4 videos specifically for this interview, and every one of those videos had a bunch of flaws. Like, for example, a bull in a china shop, the bull, which looked a lot like the Ferdinand bull from was it a Disney movie, I think, um, was like stepping on all the china, and none of it was breaking. So that was a flaw. There was just flaws in everything. So we're seeing the best examples of Sora being released by OpenAI, but they still have problems. She was asked about the speed, and she says it does take a couple minutes to generate the examples we're seeing, and that these are much more expensive right now than ChatGPT outputs or even DALL-E image generation. But by the time they release this, that they want it to cost roughly what it costs to do DALL-E. Um, She was asked about audio, and she said they're not working on it yet, which I thought was kind of interesting. I would have assumed they would be working on that, but they're not working on building audio into these, and that the model is basically in red teaming right now. They're working on researching watermarking and content provenance. It was actually two of the things that Mira said they think a lot about and is slowing down the release of this. And then the reporter asked specifically about the release timeline, and she said this year, probably a few months. And so again, that's kind of what we've said is, I could see this by summertime probably being built into ChatGPT, maybe for an additional fee. And it sounds like that's probably a realistic timeline to look at based on what Mira was saying.
Yeah, I think that point about the quality or kind of being cherry picked nature of the demos is so, so important because I feel like Sora is one of those things. Let me know if you agree. That was the thing where I had people reaching out to me being like, wait, what's happening here
Yeah.
when we covered that? So I think it is easy to take a look at the demo and be like, oh my God, the world is going to change completely the moment this thing becomes publicly available. That does not seem to be the case, but we'll see.
Yeah, and she asked her more about that, and, like, there was an example where, like, there was a person standing on a corner and a car was a cab, like a yellow taxi cab, as it was coming through the screen, and then it passes the person, and all of a sudden it becomes like a gray sedan. And
Mm.
so things like that were just completely inconsistent. And so she asked her about the possibility of, like, editing that, and she said, "Well, we're working on that. That'll give people more control of the outputs and the ability to edit the outputs so that they become more reliable." So yeah, again, like, I mean, she outside of the faux pas around the training question, there was actually quite a bit of interesting information about Sora that I had not previously seen publicly. So valuable interview other than the training data problem.